An HOA president slammed the community gate directly on my wheelchair-bound daughter, trapping her small body against the cold metal. She screamed that disabled children weren't allowed on community pathways. My 8-year-old daughter cried, begging desperately to go home. The woman had absolutely no idea I was an assistant commissioner of police. That was her biggest mistake. Before we dive into this powerful story, comment below and tell me which country you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing real-life stories just like this one. The metal gate slammed against my daughter's wheelchair with a sickening crunch that still echoes in my nightmares to this day. I was exactly 47 seconds too late. "No wheelchairs on the community pathway!" The woman's shrill voice carried across the quiet morning air like nails scraping down a chalkboard. "You're damaging our pristine concrete with those dirty wheels." My 8-year-old daughter, Emma, sat trapped between the heavy iron gate and the brick pillar, her small body trembling with fear and pain. Tears streamed down her pale cheeks as she clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly to her chest. The woman, later identified as Karen, the HOA president, pressed her considerable weight against the gate, keeping my precious child pinned like an insect in a collection case. "Please, I just want to go home," Emma whispered, her voice breaking my heart. "You're hurting me." I had been parking my car in the visitor's spot, just one row away from where this nightmare was unfolding. We had moved into the Riverside Meadows community only 3 weeks earlier, seeking a peaceful neighborhood where Emma could recover from her recent surgery. She had been born with spina bifida, and despite multiple operations over the years, she remained paralyzed from the waist down. Her wheelchair wasn't just a mobility device for her. It was her legs, her freedom, her entire world. The moment I heard Emma's cry of pain, my blood turned to ice in my veins. I ran. I ran faster than I had ever run in my entire life, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst right through my ribcage. As I rounded the corner, the scene before me made my vision blur with absolute rage. Karen, a woman in her late 50s with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and an expensive designer tracksuit, had deliberately pushed the community gate closed on Emma's wheelchair. The gate, designed to prevent unauthorized vehicles from entering the pedestrian path, had caught the wheelchair's footrest, and instead of releasing it immediately, Karen had pushed even harder. "Ma'am, you need to step back right now," I roared, my voice carrying the authority of 20 years in law enforcement. Karen jumped, startled by my sudden appearance, but her face quickly twisted into an ugly sneer. "Oh, another entitled parent who thinks rules don't apply to their brat," she said with dripping contempt. "This wheelchair is violating HOA Regulation 47B, subsection 3. No wheeled vehicles on pedestrian pathways. That includes bicycles, skateboards, scooters, and yes, wheelchairs." I physically moved her aside, my hands shaking with barely controlled fury, and immediately released the gate from Emma's wheelchair. Emma collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Her left hand was scraped and bleeding where she had desperately tried to push against the gate. The wheelchair's footrest was bent at an awkward angle, and I could already see fresh bruises forming on her shin. "Emma, baby, I've got you." "You're safe now," I whispered, holding her tight against me, feeling her small body shake with fear. My own tears fell into her soft brown hair. "Daddy," she sobbed, "I'm not allowed here. She said I'm breaking the rules. She said people like me should stay inside where we don't ruin things." Emma's words cut through me like broken glass, each syllable a knife to my heart. I looked up at Karen, who stood with her arms crossed defiantly, not a single shred of remorse on her surgically enhanced face. Behind her, several other residents had gathered, some looking absolutely horrified, others actually nodding in agreement with her actions. "You assaulted my daughter," I said, my voice deadly calm despite the rage coursing through me. "You physically harmed a disabled child." Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please don't be so overdramatic. I barely touched her. If you can't control your child and her equipment, maybe you shouldn't live in a premium community like this. We have standards here. We have rules. The HOA board voted unanimously that wheelchairs constitute a safety hazard on our pathways. They could trip people, damage property, or cause accidents. She's 8 years old, I said, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. She's a child who cannot walk. What exactly do you expect her to do? That's not my problem, Karen said coldly, without an ounce of compassion. You should have read the HOA regulations carefully before moving here. Ignorance of the rules is no excuse. If your daughter cannot navigate the community in accordance with our standards, perhaps you should consider moving to a more appropriate facility. The casual cruelty of her words, the complete lack of humanity in her cold eyes, ignited something primal deep inside me. But I had learned long ago that rage, however justified, must be controlled and channeled into something far more powerful than violence. I see, I said quietly, gently placing Emma back into her damaged wheelchair. I examined the bent footrest with gentle hands, despite the fury coursing through my veins. Emma, sweetheart, can you move your legs at all? Does anything hurt more than usual? She shook her head, but fresh tears continued to fall. My hand hurts, and my feelings are hurt, Daddy. Why does she hate me? I didn't do anything bad. My heart shattered into a million pieces. You did nothing wrong, Princess. Nothing at all. Some people have forgotten how to be kind, but I promise you, I will make this right. I pulled out my phone and carefully took photographs of Emma's injuries, the damaged wheelchair, the gate, and Karen herself. She actually noticed and smiled confidently for the camera, completely secure in her righteousness. Document all you want, she said smugly. The HOA has the best lawyers in the state. We've successfully defended our community standards against dozens of complaints over the years. You'll lose just like everyone else who thought they were special. We'll see, I replied calmly. I then turned to the crowd of gathered residents. I need witnesses. Anyone who saw what happened here, please come forward and give me your information. An elderly man stepped forward hesitantly. His name was Robert Chen, and his kind eyes were filled with disgust at what he had just witnessed. I saw everything, he said firmly, his voice shaking with emotion. Mrs. Whitmore deliberately trapped that child. The girl was just trying to go home. She wasn't hurting anyone or anything. A younger woman with a baby stroller also came forward courageously. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I live in Unit 42. I've been harassed by Mrs. Whitmore 3 separate times for having my stroller on the pathway. She's been terrorizing families for months now. But this, what she did to your daughter, this is pure evil. Karen's face turned bright red with anger. Traitors, both of you! You're supposed to support the HOA board, not undermine our authority. Your authority? Robert's voice was sharp with justified anger. You're not a queen, Karen. You're a volunteer board member drunk on imaginary power. What you did today crossed every line of basic human decency. I gathered the witness's contact information while Karen continued her angry rant about community standards and property values. Emma sat quietly in her damaged wheelchair, clutching her rabbit, her innocence shattered by senseless cruelty. Emma. I knelt beside her wheelchair. I need to take you to the hospital to get checked out properly. Then Daddy has some very important phone calls to make. Can you be brave just a little longer? She nodded, her lower lip trembling. Are you going to make her say sorry? Oh, sweetheart, I'm going to do much more than that. I promise you. At the hospital, Emma was diagnosed with severe bruising, a sprained wrist, and significant psychological trauma. The doctor, a compassionate woman named Dr. Ramirez, was absolutely horrified when I explained in detail what had happened. This is child abuse, she said flatly, completing her medical report. I'm legally obligated to report this to Child Protective Services and the police immediately. This woman deliberately harmed a vulnerable child. Please do, I replied calmly. Document everything in detail. While Emma rested, sedated with mild pain medication, I finally made the call I had been holding back on making. I had been reluctant to use my position of authority. preferring to live as a normal citizen in my new community. But Karen had made a catastrophic mistake. She had assumed I was just another helpless parent she could bully with complete impunity. She had absolutely no idea who she was dealing with. "Commissioner Rodriguez, it's Michael Stevens. I need to discuss a serious incident that occurred in my community today." Commissioner Rodriguez and I had worked together for 15 years. He was my mentor, my friend, and the reason I had been promoted to Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department just 6 months ago. When I explained what had happened to Emma, his fury matched my own. "Michael, I am so sorry. How is Emma doing?" "Traumatized, hurt, scared, and I'm going to make sure this never happens to her or any other child again. What do you need from me?" "Nothing official. Not yet. But I need you to be ready. This is going to get complicated, and I need to do this completely by the book. No shortcuts, no favoritism whatsoever. I want everything documented, everything legal, everything perfect. When I take down Karen and her corrupt HOA, I want it to be absolutely ironclad. You have my full support. Keep me informed every step of the way." Over the next 3 days, I transformed from a concerned father into a strategic investigator. I had spent 20 years working my way up from beat cop to assistant commissioner, and I had not reached that position by being impulsive or reckless. I knew exactly how to build an airtight case. First, I filed a formal police report against Karen for assault and child endangerment. Because of the extensive hospital documentation and multiple witness statements, the responding officers had no choice but to take it very seriously. Karen was absolutely furious when 2 uniformed officers showed up at her door. "This is harassment," she shrieked. "I'm the HOA president. You can't treat me like a common criminal." "Ma'am, we're just following standard protocol," Officer Davis said patiently. "You've been accused of assaulting a minor. We need your official statement." Karen hired an expensive lawyer immediately, a slick corporate attorney named Marcus Webb who specialized in defending HOA boards from lawsuits. He issued a public statement claiming Karen had been enforcing legitimate community standards and that my daughter's injuries were minor and accidental. That was her first major mistake. While Karen felt secure behind her lawyer and her HOA board, I was digging much deeper. I submitted a Freedom of Information request for all HOA board meetings, votes, and communications for the past 5 years. What I discovered was absolutely disturbing. The wheelchair ban had been implemented just 3 months ago, but it had never been properly voted on by the board. Karen had added it to the regulations herself, actually forging board member signatures on the official documentation. When I interviewed the other 4 board members separately, 3 of them claimed they had never even seen the regulation before it suddenly appeared in the community handbook. Fraud, forgery, falsification of official documents. But I was just getting started. I discovered that Karen had systematically used HOA funds to renovate her own home, disguising the expenses as community improvements. She had funneled over $40,000 into her personal projects, including a new pool, professional landscaping, and a complete kitchen remodel. Embezzlement, misappropriation of funds, breach of fiduciary duty. I interviewed 37 families in the Riverside Meadows community over the following 2 weeks. The stories that emerged were absolutely heartbreaking. Karen had viciously harassed a family with an autistic son, claiming his occasional outbursts violated noise ordinances. She had threatened to fine an elderly veteran for displaying an American flag that she deemed too large. She had tried to force a single mother to get rid of her emotional support dog, claiming it was a banned breed despite the woman's medical documentation. Discrimination, harassment, violation of federal disability laws. Every interview was recorded with permission. Every document was copied and verified. Every witness statement was notarized. I built my case with the precision of a master craftsman building a cathedral brick by brick. 2 weeks after the incident, I attended my first HOA board meeting. Karen's face when I walked into that conference room was absolutely priceless. Her confident smirk faltered for just a moment, but she quickly recovered her composure. "Mr. Stevens," she said coldly, If you're here to complain again about the wheelchair incident, I suggest you speak with our attorney. This board doesn't have time for frivolous grievances. Oh, I'm not here to complain, I said pleasantly, taking a seat in the front row. I'm here to observe. Public meetings are open to all community residents, correct? She waved her hand dismissively. Fine. Sit there and waste your time if you want. I watched silently as Karen bulldozed through the meeting agenda, completely ignoring other board members' input, making unilateral decisions, and treating residents with barely concealed contempt. A young couple tried to request permission to install a wheelchair ramp for the wife's elderly mother, who was coming to live with them. Denied, Karen said flatly, without any discussion. Ramps are not architecturally consistent with our community aesthetic. Your mother-in-law will have to find alternative arrangements. But she's 92 years old and just had hip surgery, the husband protested desperately. She can't manage stairs at all. This is her only option to stay with family instead of going to a nursing home. Not my problem, Karen replied coldly. Next item on the agenda. I recorded everything on my phone. After the meeting, several residents approached me, having heard about what happened to Emma. They shared their own horror stories, their own documentation of Karen's reign of terror. By the time I left that night, I had 17 new witnesses and a USB drive completely full of damning evidence. 3 weeks after the incident, the local news picked up the story. Sarah Mitchell, the young mother I had met on that terrible morning, had contacted an investigative journalist named Rebecca Torres. Rebecca specialized in exposing corruption and abuse of power, and she immediately saw in Karen the perfect villain for her next expose. The news segment was absolutely devastating to Karen's reputation. It featured Emma, brave little Emma, sitting in her wheelchair with tears in her eyes as she recounted what Karen had done to her. It showed the hospital photos of her injuries in graphic detail. It included interviews with multiple residents who had been victimized by Karen's reign of terror over the years. And it revealed my identity as an assistant commissioner of police. Karen's lawyer tried desperately to spin the story, claiming I was using my position to intimidate his client. But Rebecca Torres was a consummate professional. She had independently verified every single fact, interviewed every witness, and obtained documentation of Karen's financial crimes. The segment went viral within hours. Within 48 hours, it had been viewed over 2 million times across social media platforms. The comment section was filled with outrage, with people calling for Karen's immediate arrest, for the HOA to be dissolved, and for Emma to receive justice. Karen went into hiding, refusing all interview requests and public appearances, but the wheels of justice, once set in motion, cannot be stopped. The district attorney's office opened a formal investigation into the assault charges. The state attorney general's office launched a comprehensive investigation into HOA fraud and embezzlement. The Department of Housing and Urban Development began examining potential violations of federal fair housing laws. 4 weeks after the incident, Karen was arrested at her home on multiple charges: assault of a minor, child endangerment, embezzlement, fraud, forgery, and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The perp walk was broadcast on every single local news station. Karen was in handcuffs, being led to a police car while reporters shouted questions at her. Her face was no longer smug or confident. She looked terrified, diminished, completely broken. I felt no satisfaction in her fear. I felt only cold, calculated justice being served. The trial took 6 long months. Karen's expensive lawyer tried every trick in the legal book. He claimed she was being persecuted for simply doing her job. He argued that the wheelchair ban was a legitimate safety concern. He suggested that Emma's injuries were exaggerated for sympathy. The jury didn't buy any of it. They heard from Emma, who testified in a closed session with a child psychologist present to protect her. They saw the hospital records, the photographs, the videos. They heard emotional testimony from the 37 families Karen had victimized over the years. They reviewed the financial records showing her systematic embezzlement. They examined the forged documents with expert analysis. The evidence was absolutely overwhelming and irrefutable. Karen was found guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman named Catherine Morrison, showed absolutely no mercy during sentencing. "Mrs. Whitmore," Judge Morrison said, her voice cold with disgust, "you were entrusted with a position of responsibility in your community. Instead of serving your neighbors with integrity and compassion, you abused your power to bully, harass, and discriminate against vulnerable people. Most egregiously, you deliberately harmed a disabled child who posed no threat to anyone. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no recognition of the pain you caused. This court finds your actions to be particularly heinous because they targeted the most vulnerable members of society." Karen stood trembling at the defense table, all her arrogance completely stripped away. "You are hereby sentenced to 3 years in state prison for assault and child endangerment, to run consecutively with 2 years for embezzlement and fraud. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA for all misappropriated funds, plus damages. You are permanently banned from serving on any HOA board or community organization ever again, and you will be required to complete anger management and ethics courses as a condition of your eventual parole." 5 years in prison. Karen, who had wielded her petty power like a weapon, who had made innocent people's lives miserable for years, who had deliberately hurt my daughter, would spend 5 years behind bars. But the consequences didn't stop with Karen's imprisonment. The entire HOA board was dissolved and replaced through new elections. The discriminatory regulations, including the wheelchair ban, were immediately struck down. The community held a massive town hall meeting where residents voted overwhelmingly to implement comprehensive anti-discrimination policies and create an accessibility committee to ensure Riverside Meadows welcomed everyone. The community came together and raised money to create a playground specifically designed for children with disabilities, featuring wheelchair-accessible equipment, sensory-friendly features, and adaptive swings. They named it Emma's Garden. On the day of the grand opening, Emma wheeled herself through the ribbon-cutting ceremony, her face absolutely glowing with joy. She had suffered nightmares for months after the incident, terrified of gates and angry voices. But with therapy, unconditional love, and time, she was healing beautifully. "Daddy, look!" she called out excitedly, maneuvering her wheelchair up a specially designed ramp to reach a platform where she could play alongside other children. "I can do it myself!" My eyes filled with tears, watching her laugh, watching her play, watching her reclaim the childhood that Karen had tried to steal from her. Robert Chen approached me, his kind eyes misty with emotion. "You did a good thing, Michael. You didn't just get justice for Emma. You freed this whole community from a tyrant." "I just did what any father would do," I replied. "I protected my child." "No," he shook his head firmly. "Most parents would have taken a settlement and moved away quietly. You stayed. You fought. You made sure she could never hurt anyone else. That takes real courage." Sarah Mitchell joined us with her toddler. "My daughter will grow up in a community that values kindness instead of compliance. That's because of you and Emma." As the sun set over Emma's garden, I watched my daughter play with a dozen other children, some in wheelchairs, some with walkers, some neurotypical. All of them just kids being kids together. This was what community was supposed to look like. Not gatekeeping and rules designed to exclude, but open arms and accommodation for everyone regardless of ability. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me with those wise, ancient eyes that children who have suffered sometimes develop. "Daddy, is the mean lady going to come back?" "No, sweetheart. She can't hurt you anymore, I promise." "Did you make her say sorry?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "She's facing the consequences of what she did. Sometimes that's more important than an apology. Sometimes people who hurt others don't really understand why they should be sorry. But the important thing is that you're safe now, and you always will be." "I feel safe now," she whispered, clutching her beloved rabbit close. "Thank you for protecting me." As she drifted peacefully off to sleep, I sat beside her bed, watching her innocent face in the soft glow of her nightlight. I thought about the moment I had rounded that corner and seen her trapped, helpless, terrified. I thought about the rage that had consumed me, the desire to respond to violence with violence. But I had chosen a different path. I had used the law, the system, the tools of civilization to achieve justice. Not revenge, but accountability. Not cruelty, but consequences. Karen's fall from her petty throne had been absolute. She had lost her freedom, her reputation, her home, and her standing in the community. The judge had ordered her house sold to pay restitution to the HOA. Her husband had divorced her during the trial. Her adult children refused to speak to her. She had destroyed her own life through her cruelty and greed. 6 months after the sentencing, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Karen, sent from the women's correctional facility where she was serving her sentence. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. The letter was 5 pages long, handwritten on prison stationery. In it, Karen claimed she had undergone a profound transformation. She wrote about attending mandatory therapy, about finally confronting the anger and entitlement that had driven her behavior for so many years. She wrote about working in the prison library, helping other inmates learn to read, and she apologized. "I know my words mean nothing to you," she wrote. "I know I destroyed your daughter's sense of safety and caused her tremendous pain. I know I hurt dozens of other people with my cruelty and abuse of power. I spent so many years believing that control and rules were the same as respect and dignity. I was wrong about everything. If I could go back to that morning and make a different choice, I would. But I can't. All I can do is live with what I've done and try to become a better person. Please tell Emma that I am sorry, truly deeply sorry. She deserved kindness, and I gave her cruelty. I will spend the rest of my life trying to atone for that." I read the letter 3 times, trying to determine if it was genuine remorse or calculated manipulation designed to help her eventual parole hearing. In the end, it didn't really matter. Karen's remorse, sincere or not, didn't change what she had done. It didn't erase Emma's nightmares or heal her injuries any faster. But I kept the letter carefully filed away. Someday, when Emma was older and ready, I would let her decide if she wanted to read it. Forgiveness was her choice to make, not mine. For now, I focused entirely on the future. Emma had been accepted into a competitive summer program for young activists. She had made friends with other disability advocates from across the country. She was happy, confident, and healing more every day. As for me, I had learned that the law, while imperfect, could still deliver justice when wielded with precision and unwavering determination. I had learned that standing up to bullies required courage, patience, and unshakable resolve. I had learned that sometimes the greatest act of love isn't protecting your child from pain, but teaching them how to transform pain into purpose. And I had learned that my daughter was infinitely stronger than I ever imagined possible. On the 1-year anniversary of the incident, we celebrated at Emma's garden. The entire community came together, families laughing and playing, everyone welcome, everyone valued. Emma wheeled herself to the center of the playground and raised her arms in triumph. "This is my home," she shouted for everyone to hear, "and nobody can ever tell me I don't belong here." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Robert Chen wiped tears from his weathered eyes. Sarah Mitchell lifted her toddler high in the air with joy. And I stood there, my heart absolutely full, watching my daughter claim her space in the world with fearless joy. Justice had been served, not just in a courtroom, but in the complete transformation of a community. The gate that had once trapped her now stood permanently open, a symbol of welcome rather than exclusion. The rules that had once been weapons of discrimination had been rewritten to protect rather than punish. And my daughter, my brave, beautiful, unstoppable daughter, rolled forward confidently into her future with her head held high. That is justice. That is love. That is victory. 2 years had passed since that terrible morning at the gate. Emma was now 10 years old, and the transformation in her was nothing short of miraculous. But the journey to this point had been anything but easy. The nightmares had been the worst part of her recovery. For months after the incident, Emma would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, convinced she was trapped again, unable to move, unable to breathe. I would rush to her room and hold her tightly, rocking her gently until the terror subsided and reality slowly returned. "The gate is closing, Daddy," she would sob into my chest, her small body shaking. "I can't get out. She's pushing it, and I can't move at all." Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the child psychologist we had been seeing twice a week, explained that Emma was experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. The assault had shattered her sense of safety in a world that was already challenging for a child with disabilities. "Emma needs to reclaim her power," Dr. Walsh told me during one of our parent sessions. "She needs to transform from victim to survivor to advocate. That's how she'll truly heal." And that's exactly what happened, though not in any way I could have predicted. 3 months after Karen's trial ended, Emma asked me if she could start a YouTube channel. At first, I was hesitant. She was only 8 years old, and the internet could be incredibly cruel. But Emma was absolutely insistent. "I want to tell other kids like me that they matter," she said, her brown eyes fierce with determination. "I want them to know that when bad things happen, you can fight back. You can make things better." Her channel, Emma's World on Wheels, started small and humble. Her first video, filmed in our living room with just my phone, was simply titled, "The Day Someone Tried to Stop Me." In it, Emma told her story with raw honesty that left viewers in tears. "A lady hurt me because I use a wheelchair," she said to the camera, her voice small but steady. "She said I wasn't allowed to be outside. She said I was breaking rules. But you know what? There's no rule that says kids like me don't belong. There's no rule that says we're not important. And if someone tries to tell you that you don't matter because you're different, they're wrong. You matter. I matter. We all matter." The video went viral overnight. Within a single week, it had been viewed over 5 million times. Comments poured in from parents of disabled children, from adults with disabilities, from teachers and advocates, and from complete strangers around the world. All of them were moved by Emma's courage and clarity. More videos followed in the weeks and months after. Emma filmed herself navigating inaccessible spaces and explaining thoughtfully what could be done better. She interviewed other kids with disabilities, giving them a platform to share their own stories. She created educational content about different types of disabilities, breaking down stigma and misconceptions with the simple honesty that only a child can deliver. And within 6 months, Emma's World on Wheels had grown to over 200,000 subscribers. She received messages daily from children who had been bullied, excluded, or discriminated against because of their disabilities. She answered as many as she could, offering encouragement and solidarity. "You helped me stand up to the mean kids at school," one 9-year-old boy wrote to her. "They used to make fun of my leg braces all the time, but after I showed them your videos, they stopped. Now they ask me questions instead of laughing. Thank you, Emma." Reading messages like that, watching my daughter transform her pain into purpose that helped others, filled me with a pride so profound it sometimes overwhelmed me completely. Emma's mother would have been so proud. I wished every single day that she could see the incredible young woman our daughter was becoming. The state legislature invited Emma to testify about a new bill that would strengthen protections for people with disabilities in HOA communities across the state. I sat in the gallery, watching my 10-year-old daughter wheel herself confidently to the microphone with a poise that belied her young age. "My name is Emma Stevens," she began, her voice clear and strong, filling the chamber. "When I was 8 years old, an HOA president trapped me in a gate because she said my wheelchair wasn't allowed on the sidewalk. She hurt me really badly. But the worst part wasn't the bruises or the broken wheelchair. The worst part was feeling like I didn't belong in my own neighborhood." The legislators listened, completely rapt, as Emma continued her testimony. Kids like me just want to live normal lives. We want to go to the park. We want to ride our bikes or roll our wheelchairs. We want to play with our friends. We shouldn't have to be afraid that someone will stop us just because we look different or move differently. Please pass this law. Please make sure no other kid has to feel the way I felt that day." When she finished, the entire chamber erupted in sustained applause. Several legislators had visible tears in their eyes. The bill passed unanimously 2 weeks later and was officially named Emma's Law in her honor. But perhaps the most healing moment came from the most unexpected source imaginable. 18 months into Karen's sentence, I received a surprising call from the prison's rehabilitation coordinator, a woman named Miss Denise Carter. "Mr. Stevens, I know this is very unusual," she began carefully, "but Karen has been working extensively with our restorative justice program. She's requested the opportunity to speak with you and Emma, not to ask for forgiveness, but to take full accountability for what she did. It's entirely your choice, and I want to emphasize that Emma's well-being is the absolute priority here." My first instinct was to refuse immediately. Why should we give Karen anything, even the opportunity to ease her guilty conscience? But I thought about Dr. Walsh's words about reclaiming power, about transformation from victim to survivor. "Let me talk to Emma," I said. "This has to be completely her decision." That night, I carefully explained the request to Emma. I expected her to be frightened or angry. Instead, she was thoughtful and calm. "Does she want to say sorry?" Emma asked. "I think so. But Ms. Carter says it's more than that. She wants to hear from you directly about how her actions affected you. It's called restorative justice. It's about accountability." Emma was quiet for a long moment, absently petting her beloved rabbit. "I think I want to do it," she finally said. "Not for her. For me. I want her to see that she didn't break me. I want her to know that I'm okay now." 2 weeks later, we sat in a small, sterile conference room at the correctional facility. Karen looked nothing like the imperious HOA president who had terrorized our community. Her expensive designer clothes had been replaced with a standard prison uniform. Her perfect hair was streaked with gray and pulled back simply. Her face, completely free of makeup, showed every single one of her years. When she saw Emma wheel into the room, her composure crumbled completely. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to find words to speak. "Emma," she finally managed, her voice breaking with emotion, "I am so deeply sorry for what I did to you. There is no excuse, no justification possible. I was cruel and heartless, and I hurt you terribly. You were just a little girl, and I made you feel afraid and unwelcome in your own home. I have thought about that day every single day since it happened. I see your face in my dreams. I hear your voice asking me why I hated you." Emma listened silently, her face serious but remarkably calm. She had grown so much in the past 18 months, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. She sat straighter in her wheelchair, more confident, more self-assured. "I didn't hate you," Karen continued, her voice raw with emotion. "I never hated you personally. I was so completely consumed with control and power and enforcing rules that I forgot about human beings. I forgot about basic kindness. I forgot what really matters in life, and a beautiful, innocent child paid the price for my ugliness and cruelty." She turned to me, tears still flowing freely. "Mr. Stevens, I know you could have physically harmed me that day. I saw it clearly in your eyes, but you chose justice instead of revenge. You taught me that real strength isn't about dominating others. It's about protecting the vulnerable and holding wrongdoers accountable through proper channels. I'm grateful for that lesson, even though it cost me absolutely everything." Emma finally spoke, her voice remarkably steady for a 10-year-old. "You hurt me a lot. Not just my body, but my heart. I had nightmares about you for a really long time. I was scared to go outside. I was scared that other people would be mean to me like you were." Karen's sobs intensified, but Emma continued with surprising wisdom. "But you know what? I'm not scared anymore. I started a YouTube channel where I help other kids with disabilities. I talked to the legislature, and they passed a law because of me. I made friends all over the world. I'm happy now. You tried to make me feel small, but instead, you made me strong." The profound wisdom in my 10-year-old daughter's words left both Karen and me completely speechless. Emma had articulated something incredibly profound. Sometimes our worst moments, our deepest pain, can become the catalyst for our greatest growth and purpose. "I forgive you," Emma said simply, her voice clear. "Not because what you did was okay. It wasn't. But because I don't want to carry anger around inside me anymore. I want to be happy. And I can't be happy if I'm always thinking about how much I hate you." Karen covered her face with both hands, her whole body shaking with the force of her crying. "Thank you," she whispered brokenly. "Thank you for your grace. I don't deserve it." "Maybe not," Emma agreed honestly. "But I deserve peace. So I'm giving you forgiveness, and I'm giving myself freedom from anger." As we left the prison that day, Emma was quiet for a long time, processing the intense experience. Finally, she looked up at me with those wise eyes. "Daddy, do you think people can really change?" I considered the question very carefully. "I think some people can, if they truly want to, if they do the incredibly hard work of examining themselves and their choices honestly. But change has to come from deep inside. Nobody can force it on someone else." "I hope she really changes," Emma said softly. "I hope she learns to be kind to people." "You, my darling girl, are already kind," I replied, kissing the top of her head. "You're the kindest, bravest person I know." Today, Emma is thriving far beyond my wildest dreams. Her YouTube channel has grown to over 500,000 subscribers from around the world. She's been featured in national news magazines as a young disability rights advocate and inspiration. She's spoken at major conferences, schools, and community events about inclusion and accessibility. But more than any of those accomplishments, she's genuinely happy. She has close friends, both disabled and non-disabled. She loves science and mathematics and wants to be a doctor someday so she can help other kids who are hurting. She still has challenging days physically and emotionally, but she faces them with remarkable resilience and humor. As for Karen, she was released on parole after serving 3 years of her sentence for exemplary behavior and full participation in rehabilitation programs. She moved to a different state to start over, far away from the community she had terrorized for so long. I heard through Robert Chen that she volunteers at a disability advocacy center now, working quietly behind the scenes to support accessibility initiatives and help families navigate the system. I don't know if her transformation is genuine and lasting, or if it will hold up outside prison walls, but I know with absolute certainty that Emma's transformation is real, permanent, and beautiful. She took the worst day of her young life and turned it into a powerful mission to make the world better for others who are struggling. That's the real victory, not Karen's punishment, though that was necessary and just. Not the law that bears Emma's name, though that will help countless others. The real victory is seeing my daughter roll confidently through the world, knowing she belongs everywhere, knowing she has immense value, knowing she can overcome anything life throws at her. Every time I see her laugh with pure joy, every time I watch her advocate passionately for others, every time I hear her say with conviction, "I matter," I remember that terrible morning at the gate. I remember my rage, my fear, my desperate need to protect her from a cruel world, and I thank God that I chose justice over vengeance. I taught Emma that the system, as imperfect as it sometimes is, can work when good people refuse to stay silent and fight for what's right. Emma's story isn't just about what was done to her. It's about what she did with it afterward. She transformed trauma into triumph, pain into purpose, and victimhood into powerful advocacy. She is my hero. She is my greatest inspiration. She is living proof that light can emerge from even the darkest moments if we choose to create it. And she will never, ever let anyone make her feel like she doesn't belong. The gate is gone now. removed and replaced with a beautiful archway that welcomes everyone. The rules have been rewritten with compassion. The community has been transformed, and my daughter rolls forward into her bright future, unstoppable, unbreakable, and absolutely extraordinary.